Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today in Vlachim in the Czech Republic visiting Sellier Bellot, S&B, one of the biggest ammunition manufacturers in the world, and we went and dug through their reference armory to find some cool guns to show you, and today we have this pretty modern one. This is an Israeli Negev 7 made by IMI. This is essentially the new updated version of the Negev general purpose machine gun. Now, the Negev was originally introduced in 1997. It went into development in 85 and had a rather long development period. And the original gun was in 5.56 only. It was essentially Israel's response to the FN Mini-Me, the squad automatic weapon. And it actually shared a fair number of the Mini-Me's features. In particular, it was capable of feeding from either a belt hanging in a box like this, or from a rifle box magazine. They had both AR and Galil magazine adapters versions of the Negev. So IMI tends to have a different customer base from companies like FN. They do a lot of sales to countries that are sort of outside the Western NATO sphere, so Southeast Asia, Central and South America, and the Negev proved to be a very popular, very effective, very profitable weapon for IMI. Fast forward to 2012, and they introduced the new version of the Negev. It's the Negev 7, and now it is in 7.62 NATO caliber instead of 5.56, and has the same basic mechanical setup as the original Negev, but simplifies a few things, makes some of the disassembly easier. It's a modernized, improved version in the heavier caliber. So let's go ahead and take a quick look here. We'll strip it apart, see how it works internally. All right, if we start looking at the top, we'll see one of the features that I particularly like about the Negev, both the older version and this newer one. And that is the fact that the rear sight and or optic are actually mounted fixed to the receiver. So most of the time with this style of gun, you will have basically a feed mechanism straight off the German MG42 or the Browning 1919 that comes all the way back, like it's a very long top cover, and the optics or sights are usually mounted on that. Here, we have a much compressed feed system that's a lot shorter. It means that the feed cover is only this big, and that leaves space on the receiver for the sights, which is, I think, a much more durable, more repeatable, just an overall better solution. Next up, let's go ahead and take the barrel off here. This is sort of one of the key core features of all modern general purpose machine guns and squad automatic weapons. How quick and easy is it, and how foolproof is it to change the barrel? So here, all I have to do is push in this button, and I can pull the barrel forward. Now I do have to have the feed cover open to do this, but kind of cool, it doesn't matter if the bolt is in the open or closed position. So I can pull the barrel there with the bolt open, and I can also do it with the bolt closed. Unlike the original Negevs, there is no longer a box magazine feeding option here. Makes sense because, well, the Israelis don't use a 7.62 infantry rifle, and there isn't really quite as universal of a 7.62 rifle magazine as there is for 5.56. You know, it's easy with 5.56 to just use the AR Stanag magazine. 7.62, not quite so much. So we have belt boxes. These hold either 100 or 125 rounds of linked ammunition, and the box has this really big molded plastic latch or dovetail that goes into it. So I like this, that it's easy to fit in. There's just a button. You just depress this on the top to take the thing out. A lot of belt boxes like this have relatively small attachment points and relatively small, narrow stamped rails that the thing has to fit in. This is nice and easy to actually insert into the gun. And then, by the way, in order to actually load the belt box, you just open up the cloth Velcro section on the end, and you can wind your belt up inside there. The bipod feet retract, not a lot. Like, this is as long as the bipod gets, and it's just a one position extension. So it's either all the way closed like this, or all the way open like that. You can stow the bipod sort of folded in the forward position there. Or, of course, you can clamp it down like that under the handguard. Here are our receiver markings, not a whole lot on there. IWI, Israeli Weapons Industries, serial number, Negev LMG, and the caliber. I do like the fact that this does have a semi-auto position, so safe, semi, and full. I think semi-auto has value for limiting the amount of fire. There are times when you don't need a full burst, and perhaps you want to conceal the fact that there is a machine gun in a position or with a unit. It's also very convenient for zeroing the gun. Yes, it's possible to just load like every other round in a belt so that you get single shots on full auto mode, but it's frankly just a lot easier to have a semi-auto selector. That said, this is not ambidextrous. On the right side, you have no controls at all. All right, if I pull off the barrel, we of course have our gas block on the barrel, and it does have a 2-position selector there. So this is currently in position 1, and I can rotate it up to position 2. So you have basically a regular and an adverse setting. This is should be a relatively fast firing gun. It is reportedly 850 to 1,050 rounds a minute in the regular setting, and that bumps up to between 950 and 1150 in the adverse setting. So you're getting another 100 to 200 rounds a minute with the extra gas port position. That's not a ton, but it is a pretty fast firing gun to begin with. And I like this big plastic lever here for the gas port. Most of the time, machine guns like this will have some sort of relatively easily adjustable gas port, but it usually involves using a cartridge. You have to stick a cartridge into something and wiggle it around, or use the rim of a cartridge. This is one that you can actually just use extremely easily, even if the barrel's really hot. The stock is adjustable both for length and also an adjustable cheek rest for height if you have optics on it. It's kind of cool, but nothing particularly fancy these days. To start our disassembly, we're going to press this latch in, and that lets the buttstock assembly slide upward. There we go, that comes off. You do have a buffer back here to absorb that last bit of impact from the bolt carrier. With the stock off, I can then remove the recoil spring assembly, push it in, and let it pop out. It is self-contained, so that's as far as it'll come out on its own. We do have dual recoil springs here, fairly long ones. And then I can pop out the bolt and bolt carrier. There we go. Looks a fair bit different than something like, well, certainly than an FN Mag. Looks different than a Mini-Me, although it is fundamentally the same thing. So this is a long stroke gas piston. The gas port, of course, is on the barrel. So this goes in like that. And when you fire, it's going to push the piston back. We have a rotating bolt, pretty typical by today's machine gun standards. And I can remove it by pushing down on this. You would normally do that with a cartridge. We'll use a universal disassembly tool here. So I push that down, and it allows me to rotate the bolt over and remove it. The firing pin is fixed. This fires from an open bolt, so as soon as the bolt closes and locks, it automatically fires. That's it. That's all there is to it. And then removing the pistol grip is actually a little more complicated than on many other guns. We have a cross pin here, which is kind of normal. But it is a stiff one. There we go. And then interestingly, the trigger guard is not attached. It's a separate piece, and it acts as a spring. So as soon as I let up on the pistol grip, it kind of pops out of position. We get the trigger guard here. We get the pistol grip assembly, which has a pretty standard fire control system. You're just dropping this sear when you pull the trigger. In semi-auto mode, when the bolt goes forward, it's going to hit that and disconnect the sear. So you have to pull the trigger again. And of course, in full auto, that disconnector drops down out of the way, and it will just fire as long as you hold the trigger down. On the Mini-Me, on the MG4, on a lot of other light machine guns, the bipod is pretty easily removable as well. On this one, not so much. You can take it off, but it's not just a quick detach part. Generally speaking, this is the result of your field stripping. Again, you can also take off the top cover, but it's not just like a simple push pin, pop it right off. We do have dust covers for both the feed and ejection sides. This is automatically opened by the bolt when it goes forward. This guy is always under spring tension. So when you load the belt, you're going to drop it in there, and then this dust cover will lift up over the belt when you close it back up. Oh, and by the way this short feed system works is this pawl right here, because the bolt carrier, as it goes back and forth, is going to push this in and out like that, and that's what pulls the belt up into the gun. So you can see those feed pawls right there, moving in and out like that. And there you are with the Negev 7 field stripped. At this point, it seems like the Negev 7 is doing a pretty darn good job of following in the original Negev's footsteps. There are a lot of countries that are existing IMI customers that are now very interested and excited to have Negev 7s. I was in Estonia not that long ago, and they have Negev 7s to replace their original 5.56 Negevs that they bought back in the 1990s. So that's just one of many examples. Now, hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing how this field stripped out. If you're on YouTube right now, that is the end of the video. But we are going to take this out to the range and do some shooting with it, because I'm really curious to see how it actually handles in live fire. YouTube's not particularly happy with full auto footage these days, so we'll be posting the full cut of this video over on the History of Weapons and War streaming app. So I have a link in the description text below to the video, the full video, over there. If you're interested in seeing it, please do check it out. It's a subscription-only service, gives you a way to support 8 different firearms educational historical channels and get yourself away from some of YouTube's rules. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.